Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Bhakti Nirmala Acharya Maharaj ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Acharya Vrinda ki jai. Okay. So, Life Nectar of the Surrendered Souls, Chapter 4, Rejection of the Unfavorable. What is Sanskrit for rejection? Pratikulya. And unfavorable, Vyvarjanam. Okay. So, Chapter 4, we are on verse 26. This is Guru Maharaj's introductory summary. The practice of finding faults in others must be abandoned. Para doshanusilanam varjaniyam. Doshanusilanam. Finding faults in others must be abandoned. All right. So must be vivarjanam must be rejection, huh?
The varjan is rejection,
yeah.
And then vivarjan, it's the V is that like intensifier.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking it was unfavorable, but pratikul is unfavorable, right?
Anukul and pratikul.
Right.
Anukul is
Gurudev.
Pratikul, unfavorable.
Okay. And the stress is must be abandoned. And this is a quote from Sri Bhagavataha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To pointlessly judge others is a defect, and therefore such a practice must be abandoned. O Uddhava, you should neither praise nor abuse the nature and actions of others, because you will become preoccupied with falsehood, and your best self-interest will be lost. Para swabhava karmani ya prasansati nindati sa ashu parasyate swartha asatya biniveshataha. So, judging others, that's the tendency of everyone in the material world, because our position is so shaky in the material world, because we're driven by ego, which wants to place ourselves in the top position, but we're surrounded by people who are in a higher position than us. So naturally, the mind gravitates towards reasoning that will bring everybody else down and bring ourselves up in terms of material standing, material status, and also we have to be careful in terms of spiritual status and spiritual position. This is a difficult one, I think, for me, because when you look at someone who is not properly representing the the presentation of our gurus, and there's some offense, you almost have to answer that. It's like when you're confronted with, they speak in the scriptures in terms of direct personal contact. Like you're in personal contact with someone who's offensive. You defeat him, you escape, or you kill yourself, right? Those things. But on this media thing, it's really quite different and quite difficult. Because you have people who are, broadcasting offensive things And you know, in some cases, how do you not respond, especially when it's people who you've known? But to respond in such a way so that it's not like based on material judgment, but rather based on like spiritual compassion. We have like a gift that's come from our gurus, and that gift is so precious and so valuable that it's a very sad thing when we see people who lose sight of that gift. So we want to try to help them. So I guess there's a differentiation between something like that and you know, finding ordinary defects in people. I hope there is. I mean, at a certain point, of course, we're not debaters, we're not arguers. We're presenting an experience, and based on that experience, we have some you know, substantial philosophy. But our position is not to argue back and forth, but rather to give, you know, indication of how, you know, how our gurus have taught us to act to get that experience. You know, so that we want to convey in such a way so that you know, people will take to it. So that would be in such a way so that it's not you know, based on finding a flaw or finding fault, but based on giving something real and substantial as an alternative to you know, some misconception. What do you think of that, DDI?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference between searching for defects and, you know, lovingly trying to correct or instruct.
Yeah.
There's a really nice article that Srila Bhakti Thakur wrote. Jaggi Maharshi translated and published it, and it's about Vaishnava Aparad, and going into great detail all the different types of Vaishnava Aparad. But then at the end, Bhakti Thakur also outlines cases when one may look at the defects of others, you know, and that will be, you know, for the sake of helping, correcting that person, or for the instruction of others. Sometimes in the scriptures, you know, they'll give examples of how this person went wrong, and, you know, not because they want to search for defects and you know, point and criticize, but for the instruction of others. Learn from this, you know, learn, you know, how this person made this mistake and what was the consequence. So yeah, it's all about the intention of heart, right, Maharaj?
Yeah, so there's a difference between, you know, looking at someone's defects in terms of, you know, shortcomings in you know, in practical application and practical service, in contrast to someone who is, you know, philosophically or in a feeling way even going apart from the direction of our gurus. It's a very, you know, it's a very sad thing. So at any rate, what the instruction here from the Personality of Godhead, Sri Bhagavataha, is that, you know, we can't you know, see what is the spiritual status of our God brothers and God sisters. Srila Gurudev would tell us this: I can see, but you cannot see. He's tell us again and again and again. And I gathered from that it requires a Paramahansa vision to really be able to see what one's spiritual position is. So we have to think in terms of you know, seeing devotees as based on their sincere inner heart, and not based on you know, what we perceive externally, both in terms of, you know, material flaws that automatically our mind might go towards, and also in terms of a spiritual measurement. Though sometimes it's necessary for Vaishnava etiquette, someone who's senior, someone who's junior, someone who's equal. We make rough judgments like that, you know, generally based on, you know, time in the mission or something like that. You know, not so much based on or application of the principles in with determination, with dridda. You know, this can be seen clearly, and we honor that and respect that. But in terms of you know, seeing things as higher or lower, it's difficult for us to do. So we want to see everyone as brother and sister, and see the sincere spark that's within the heart of everyone, and focus on trying to see like that. Then praise nor abuse the nature. So not giving too much praise artificially, nor you know, giving criticism. Sometimes we see, I remember getting letters from Srila Prabhupada where he would say, "You are the flower of American youth, and you can this and that." And I was thinking, yes, I'm the flower. You know, he would praise us like anything to, you know, to direct our ego towards Krishna. So sometimes, you know, and just to encourage others, because we all need encouragement in different ways. So sometimes we praise devotees, you know, because we feel that, and because we also, you know, want to help devotees and make them feel that they're doing, you know, something important for their Gurudev. And so we share with each other based on our particular understanding about what the devotee needs to make progress practically. So yes.
I have heard or read, I don't remember, but like when you criticize a devotee and you were right about that critic, you take half of the bad quality or something like that. And when you are wrong, you take all that quality or all that karma, I don't know.
I've not heard the exact quote. Have you, Didi?
I haven't heard that exact quote. We've heard Srila Maharaj say that to discuss or contemplate the faults of others is like chewing on poison. You know, that will come to you, actually. And another very wonderful thing one of our devotees shared with me recently along the same ideas. There was one devotee who was envious of her, and then that devotee who was envious was doing some things wrong, making some mistakes, and Gurudev was kind of teasing them a little bit. And then the first devotee was kind of enjoying that, because that devotee had been giving her a hard time, so she was happy to see that she was having some difficulty. And then one day, Gurudev pulled her aside, the first devotee, and said that if somebody is envious of you, you should not become angry with them, because otherwise you will also become involved in that material energy. And then Gurudev told her, and when that devotee gets some reaction for what their misbehavior towards you, you should not be happy about that. And then, like, almost immediately she experienced that devotee did something to her very negative, but she responded in a mood of giving honor. And then that devotee had like an immediate heavy reaction for that, and she realized it's very powerful, that if she had like responded with anger, then she would also have gotten some reaction, but the full reaction went to that devotee for their misbehavior. So I haven't heard that exact quote, but that idea, we've heard.
That's very clear. By responding in in kind, you're like going onto the same plane. So you enter into that kind of energy, right?
Yes.
And it comes to you. Like I know, maybe it came from Srila Prabhupada. He said that if you see a fault in a particular quality in a person, that type of quality of fault will come to you. It comes back. Because you meditate on that, you see that, it enters your consciousness in subtle ways, and before you know it, you're involved in it. I know in my life I've seen, some reaction comes, and all of a sudden I remember, oh my gosh, I did this to somebody else like 20 years ago. How did I do that? Like, how stupid.
Right, but would there be a difference between perceiving bad quality and judging for it? Because you obviously perceive so many things, maybe something you wouldn't want to perceive. But where's the point where you make a judgment and start to
Well, I mean, we have to see things clearly in terms of, always in terms of service. So we're engaged in devotional life, we're engaged in devotional service, and if there's something there that's going to cause obstruction to our service, we naturally avoid it. But in terms of, you see in terms of service that if that problem has a negative effect on your service, then you avoid it. But if what you see in that person should be, positive in terms of the, the inner desire for development in Krishna consciousness. We want to try to see like that, and sometimes we get slapped right in the face with it. But we have to gradually learn that if we, like Didi just said, it's very clear that if we descend into the idea of judgment, we come onto the same, the same platform as that particular fault, and that particular fault will come to us. That's what I've been saying, that I've seen has happened to me through the years. Something will happen to me, and I'll realize it's happening because I did the same thing that I criticized another person for doing maybe a long time ago or yesterday or whatever. So you just have to be careful not to allow ourselves to descend to the same level. And of course that's going to be a natural reaction, so we have to work on it. That's our sadhana. So the sadhana that we engage in isn't just hearing and chanting in the morning, but it's throughout the day, meditating in terms of what we've heard in the morning and how practically we can live a life as a Vaishnava. And here, it's being clearly picked out and presented by Srila Gurudev that like he's always said, we're not drain inspectors. We don't have to look at it doesn't take an expert to find faults. There's faults everywhere. That's there in the Gita. There's a flaw in every action, Krishna says. So if you want to find a fault, you'll find it, even in the high devotees, because the material world means flaws, means faults, and we have to learn that our business is to see things in terms of service and in terms of the service of others. And if the actions of one person cause difficulties for the mind, then you just have to kind of steer clear of that person to some extent. And it all has to be based on service. First, we protect our devotional life and our service without finding fault. But at the same time, we have to be, we have to be practical in our, in our devotional life and our approach with, with our contact with individuals who are having problems. Is that helpful? Okay. Okay, so we should go on to Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because you will become preoccupied with falsehood, and your best self-interest will be lost. Neither praise nor abuse the nature of others. So our position is not to see things in terms of calculation, either apparently positive or apparently negative, but see things in terms of service. Okay, Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Acharya Brinda Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai. Okay, we're on Adi Leela, chapter 4, text 34. So, Kaviraj Goswami has been presenting to us the nature of Krishna's descent and how we develop attraction and attachment for the transcendental pastimes as an alternative to the mundane pastimes. That's why Krishna has descended and shown those pastimes, so that we can imbibe the idea that we have an alternative existence in the spiritual world. And as we more and more contact this and more like transform our consciousness to one of service, then the negative things the negative attachments to the material world become less and less. So 34. Krishna manifests his eternal human-like form and performs his pastimes to show mercy to the devotees. Having heard such pastimes, one should engage in service to him. Okay, so this is, we can unpack this a little bit. Krishna manifests in anugrahaya bhaktanam manusham deham ashritaha bhajate tadarish krida ya shrutva tatpara bhavet. Okay. Anugrahaya, to show favor, bhaktanam, to the devotees, manusham. So he comes in a human-like form, like a form of the manu, deham, body. It appears like that. And I was saying yesterday, this is for our comprehension, because in reality, Krishna doesn't have a human-like form. We have a Krishna-like body, which we call human. So, in other words, we come from Krishna, not the other way around. That's the proper perception. That not Krishna kind of takes on a form like ours, and he's actually some kind of other form. Of course, he's another kind of spiritual form, and it appears to us in a human way, so it's presented like this. But, in actuality, Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan. Okay. So this text is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 33rd chapter, 37th verse. So innumerable expansions. The saying that the human form of life is the best position for devotional service has its special significance because only in this form can a living entity revive his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Human form is considered the highest stage in the cycle of species of life in the material world, and if one takes advantage of the highest kind of material form, one can regain his position in devotional service of the Lord. So many living entities around us that we see every day, probably, who knows, hundreds of thousands, and we're like a single human. So it's actually a very rare opportunity that we take it as, this is ordinary existence, but actually it's a chance. We may have been cycling through birth and death in different species, who knows. But now we have a chance in the human form of life to perceive Krishna's higher transcendental form and his transcendental pastimes. The Lord appears in different incarnations as a fish, tortoise, and boar, as Parashuram, Lord Rama, Buddha, and so on, to reciprocate the different appreciations of the living entities in different stages of evolution. The conjugal relationship of amorous love, called Parakya Rasa, is the unparalleled perfection of love exhibited by Lord Krishna and his devotees. A class of so-called devotees, known as Sahajas, try to limit the Lord's pastimes, although they have no understanding of the amorous love in his expansions of pleasure potency. Their superficial imitation can create havoc on the path for the advancement of one's spiritual relationship with the Lord. Material sexual indulgence can never be equated with spiritual love, which is in unadulterated goodness. The activities of the Sahajas simply lower one deeper into the material contamination of the senses and the mind. So, throughout his book, Srila Prabhupada is listing the 13 known Sahaja groups and giving us so many warnings about the tendency towards Sahajism. And what does that mean? Directly means in a state of impurity, trying to enter in to the high pastimes without having the pure vision. And just by the nature of things, if we expose ourselves to those things, rather than having the effect of cleansing away our conditioning, which is what is stated by the Sahajas, if we just come in contact with this, we'll become cleansed and we'll enter into it. And they, the highest point of delusion, we see them dressing up like gopis in Krishna and, dancing in the artificial rasa dance. When I was in Vrindavan in the early 70s, I was walking down from where they were constructing the Krishna Balaram temple, and on the right side, just past Fogal Ashram, this ashram where we used to stay when there was an overflow of devotees at festival time. Anyway, across the way, there was a Sahaja place, and I actually saw men dressed up as gopis, and there was one Krishna there, and they're acting and playing it out. And I thought, this is really strange. So far, seems so far away and so bizarre. But now, after actually a short time since the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada, we find, in a lot of places, people are, sliding into sahaja notions. Like we've said repeatedly, we have to practically see what Srila Rupa Goswami and others have given us in terms of the descriptions of the high pastimes of the Lord are there as tools through which we can engage in our devotional life. And until we come to the stage where we need to utilize those things as tools for engagement in service, in other words, practically begin to learn, how to serve in that status, in that type of rasa, which requires development of devotion based on complete clearing of the external contamination, the external conditioning, and development of taste, and then from taste, a feeling of the beginning feeling of the potency of experience, and then from there bhava, and then different levels of bhava where we develop more and more, and finally we come to that stage of devotional service where we enter into that that type of activity. So when we need it, at that point we use it, and this is how we've understood it directly from Srila Sridhar Maharaj, from Srila Prabhupada and Srila Govinda Maharaj, that these high pastimes are not meant for looking at in the contaminated state. Even though it appears as though people are following the rules and regulations of sadhana, doing everything appropriately, and but if they think that somehow their development in devotional life, without becoming free of anartas, anarta nivritti, then they can't. It's not possible for them to enter into these higher
Maharaj,
books. Yeah.
Is this if these high pastimes are instructions for the highest service in the highest realms, why they manifest on the platform of Hur?
Well, it's because people here can develop to that stage. It may be in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what we hear from Srila Guru Maharaj, and which is implanted in Srila Prabhupada's books, is the idea that we develop our devotion for Mahaprabhu in the line of the Sankirtan movement, and from that stage of complete immersion and purity, then the stage of entering into Krishna's pastimes begins to develop. So until we're like purely situated in Sankirtan, there's no need for it. But yeah, I mean, it's possible that people on this plane can develop to the degree of purity and devotional love, like we've seen in our gurus. They were on the level of accessing those things, but did they do that? Nope. Saraswati Thakur wouldn't touch them. We hear from Saraswati Thakur, we have to be very careful about going into these books, and we hear from from the purports in Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. We hear something of the analysis of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but simultaneously we hear that we don't hear instruction to go to those books of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and we have no, reliable, as far as we know, reliable translations. And every translation, of course, is an interpretation. And if you're not on the level of envisioning, the substance of what's being given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and others, then we can't go there. It's dangerous to think that we can extract substance outside of the direction of our gurus is like complete illusion. It's just not possible. And we hear that again and again and again. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito. It's like it comes in the heart from the guru. So it wasn't just that Srila Prabhupada said, only read my books based on some external idea of cult type directions, but rather it was in terms of the vision of understanding that what comes from the scriptures is based on our surrender to Guru. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. And then upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. He can show what it is. How? You bow down, try your best to surrender, inquire with a submissive idea for developing service, and render service to the best of your capacity. And then it comes automatically and naturally. You don't have to work your way up through study or austerity or anything like that. It's a process of opening the heart and developing as a surrendered servant. And you're not going to get it by reading and probing into different the writings of different lines and so many things. There may be substance there, but as disciples of Srila Prabhupada sent to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, in turn sent to Srila Govinda Maharaj, and then to Acharya Maharaj and the Acharya Brinda, we don't have to look elsewhere. We have the substance. We already have it. And, looking elsewhere, what does it mean? It means shopping in the marketplace of Guru. And why are you doing that? Have you fully taken shelter of your Guru? This is one thing that Goswami Maharaj told me, that Srila Govinda Maharaj told him, that in the presentation of Sri Guru and His Grace, he should have presented talks by Srila Sridhar Maharaj, which are there, which state that in order to enter into the principle of the multiplicity of Guru, one has to first totally surrender to one Guru. Then you can begin to understand that. It's not as though from a contaminated state you wander away from your Guru and look at other Gurus to try to get things even for your own supposed devotional acquisition. It's just not like that. We're not in the business of acquiring nectar or acquiring additional knowledge. We think we may get Divya Gyan by going to these other books, but we won't. Not only will we not get Divya Gyan, but we'll get Gyan, which will pollute our devotion. It'll be not Jnana Sunya Bhakti, but Jnana Bhakti, mixed Bhakti at best. And the danger always is that wandering too far, we wander away from the instructions and the principle of surrender to Sri Guru. And that's like suicide. So Krishna descends to show his transcendental form, to help us to overcome both our attachment to the material world, and as Srila Prabhupada mentions here, sahaja tendencies. We have not contact with the high transcendental pastimes, but as needed, we receive from Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita, from Vyas in Srimad Bhagavatam, and both coming to us from our Guru Varga. In that way, we can properly receive and understand the pastimes of the Lord. Not that we have to go searching for other things, thinking that this will, expand our purification. It just doesn't work like that. Okay. The activities of the Supreme Lord can can never be understood by irresponsible persons who think the pastimes of Radha and Krishna to be ordinary affairs. So these are people who are more or less Mayavadis, and they think that Krishna has, taken a human form. They take verses like this to mean that, Krishna has descended and assumed a human form just like us. And even though, the approach to, the high pastimes may be coming from a devotional position, if we do try to enter into them too early, with still having material vision, that vision will pull us into this kind of understanding that Krishna has descended, exhibited the pastimes, and as people who want to enter into those pastimes for our benefit, we need to not only begin to hear, but begin to act them out. It comes to that. If you think you can hear the high pastimes, that sahaja slippery slope will be there, and people will be pulled in. So there's many varieties of approach. There originally were 13. Who knows how many there are now? But we have to be consciously aware, as Srila Prabhupada is constantly pointing out to us. Okay. Rupa Raghunatha Pada Hoibe Akuti Kabe Hama Bhajiba Se Yugala Pariti. When shall I be eager to understand the literature given by the Goswamis? Then I shall be able to understand the transcendental love affairs of Radha and Krishna. In other words, unless one is trained under the disciplic succession of the Goswamis, one cannot understand Radha and Krishna. The conditioned souls are naturally averse to understanding the spiritual activities of the Lord, and if they try to know the transcendental nature of the Lord's pastimes while they remain absorbed in materialism, they are sure to blunder like the sahajas. So direct, As long as you remain absorbed in materialism, as we enter into devotion and we begin to feel something of what devotion is, we simultaneously realize, what a mess we've gotten ourselves into in this material world. And, based on that, we should understand our disqualification to enter into these high things. We just aren't ready. And, thinking that somehow or other, by, an acquisitional process of devotion, will jump up from one guru to another, like jump over Saraswati Thakur, over Srila Prabhupada, over Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Govinda Maharaj. This is like a notion of objective evolution imposed onto what is in actuality should be transcendental development. It doesn't work like that. It's not as though, as some people say, like Srila Prabhupada was, what's the word? Was, kind of rendered secondary by the presence of Srila Guru Maharaj. Rather, by the presence of Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, was illuminated, and his position became more and more relevant. Really, by the grace of Guru Maharaj, and Srila Prabhupada knew this, by the grace of Guru Maharaj, we would see, the depth of the presentation of Srila Prabhupada, and how expertly he pulled us into Krishna consciousness and helped us to develop in Krishna consciousness. And by the grace of Srila Govinda Maharaj, we were able to see, practically the application of the principles of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Sridhar Maharaj in that, devoted, dedicated personality. We learned in that way. And, through our disciplic succession, we'll learn how to progress deeper and deeper, but always under the instruction of Sri Guru. Not that by, in rare cases, pure people, like Shamananda Prabhu, transfer from one group of servitors to another, but always by the permission of the servitors, both the original ones and the final ones. So we have to have permission from our guru if we're going to do these things. And clearly, this doesn't happen without proper development of transcendental purity. What time is it?
2:08.
Okay, I'll just quickly go over one more verse. So 35. Here the use of the word bhavet, which is the imperative mood, tells us that this certainly must be done. Non-compliance would be an abandonment of duty. Bhavet kriya vidhilin se iha kaya. Kartavya avasya e anyata pratyavaya. Bhavet. Bhavet kriya. The verb bhavet, which is in the vidhili, is that li? Yeah. In the imperative mood, saying that, imperative means, you got to do this. Bhava, bhavet, means to act in Sanskrit. And that, ultimately bringing us to the highest stage of action, which is, real bhava, real surrender, and love to the Lord. So, in Sanskrit we have this variety of usage. But the current, usage that's widespread of the idea of bhava as just a notion of, any ordinary feeling, or any feeling that we get that's based on Krishna consciousness, being bhava, is like, we never see that coming from any of our gurus. It's at least it's external to the line of Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat. So, we are skeptical about that kind of usage of the word bhava. So here, bhavet, in the imperative, tells us that this certainly must be done. Through service, we must understand the pastimes. That's what's said. Non-compliance would be an abandonment of duty. So we have to serve. And by that service, we gradually come to an understanding of the pastimes. It's not like at a certain point we decide, oh, now I've read all the books, so I'm going to go to a higher level because I've read them and I've understood them, and now I'm ready for a higher level. It really doesn't work like that. It works like we engage in service, we read the books to guide us and to help us develop in service, and enter into the explanations of the pastimes of Krishna as given by our gurus, and based on that we grow and develop. It's not, we can't artificially jump to another position, and this is becoming more and more widespread, this notion, which has to be stopped.
Maharaj.
Yes. It's 8, huh? Yeah, okay, let me just finish here. As long as one is in material conditional life, strict discipline is required in the matter of moral and immoral activities. In the material world, a sexual appetite necessitates distinction between moral and immoral conduct. There are no sexual activities in the spiritual world. The transactions between lover and beloved in the spiritual world are pure transcendental love and unadulterated bliss. Okay, one who has not been attracted by the transcendental beauty of rasa will certainly be dragged down into material attraction, thus to act in material contamination and progress to the darkest regions of hellish life. But by understanding the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, one is freed from the grip of attraction to the material so-called love between man and woman. Similarly, if one understands the pure parental love of Nanda and Yasoda for Krishna, he will be saved from being dragged into material parental affection. If one accepts Krishna as a supreme friend, the attraction of material friendship will be finished for him, and he will not be dismayed by so-called friendship with mundane wranglers. If he's attracted to servitorship to Krishna, he will no longer have to serve the material body in the degraded status of material existence with the false hope of becoming master in the future. Similarly, one who sees the greatness of Krishna in neutrality will certainly never again see the so-called relief of impersonalist or voidist philosophy. So Srila Prabhupada, insists that we have to become attracted to Krishna, and this is what's being given here. But there's no statement about jumping to the higher pastimes. If we've read Chaitanya Charitamrita 5 times, read it 10 times. And Parayana, you read the high things in Ramananda Samvad, not by extracting them and so-called to taste the nectar, or thinking to follow what Srila Prabhupada is telling us here. That's not what the direction is. The direction is become attached and do it in such a way that is according to the direction of the Guru within the context of those transcendental scriptures which the Guru is revealing to us. Without the potency of the Guru, the transcendental potency of the scriptures cannot be there. So sometimes it may be necessary to read something, for our service, but we must then take permission from our Guru. It has to be like that. It has to be there in that way. Otherwise, simply for acquiring a supposed deeper understanding about Krishna consciousness, this really won't come. Rather, you'll get entangled in, mixed jnana and bhakti. And generally what happens, pursuing the jnana side, the bhakti becomes less and less. Only in Krishna consciousness can one achieve the highest perfection of life.
But Maharaj, is it also jnana can be a next step after karma towards bhakti? Unless you...
Well, yeah. I mean, that's, you know, that's described by Krishna as different types of people approach him. And one is the one who has, you know, studied extensively and decided that, you know, bhakti is the conclusion of jnana. You know, there's one of the other people are desperate, and, you know, other different reasons why people approach Krishna. But, you know, and jnana is one of them. But having come to the level of bhakti in relation to our guru, one has to, like, penetrate into the deeper understanding of our relationship with Sri Guru and the necessity of that contact through surrender in all aspects of our life, you know, including the contact with scriptures. You know, and Srila Guru Maharaj was, you know, saw his service to his guru being given to him by his beloved godbrother, Srila Prabhupada. And he took it very seriously to give us, you know, instruction, particularly in the nature of our relationship with Sri Guru and the essential characteristics of that, and the imperative, as you know, as is stated here, the imperative mood that you must take it in this way. Bhavet, it's like absolutely necessary, that experience. And what experience? The experience that comes by, you know, approaching and trying for full surrender to Sri Guru. Okay. So Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Acharya Brinda ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Vaishnava Brinda ki jai. Iskan Brinda ki jai. Gaudiya Mat Brinda ki jai. All the Vaishnava Brinda ki jai. All the sincere seeker souls ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari